So, well, the slide that you can see in a second here will have our names on it, but there will be three of us presenting today. My name is Ryan Schrenk. I'm from the Montana Digital Academy with the EdReady Montana program. And what that is, we'll talk about it in detail, of course, but the EdReady Montana program right now is bringing an option to teach math to everybody in our state free of charge, thanks to a gift from a foundation that we'll talk about. And it's been my job for the last 3+ years to make that program scalable and work for our whole state, from upper elementary, middle school, high school, adult basic education, and higher education in our state. We're going to focus on our higher education implementations for this conference, obviously, but if you know of anybody, or especially if you're in Montana, but I've been also working with the national group to have a scaling conference. We've done 2 now. Regionally, we did one last year in Denver, where we had 12 states participate, and large-scale implementations at colleges and universities and adult basic education programs. And then we did one in Chattanooga, Tennessee last fall as well. So we're also in the process of helping them figure out how to grow and scale this to meet varied levels of audiences' needs. But then with me today on our higher education panel is Lauren Fern from the University of Montana. She's a math lecturer there and also coordinates all of the math help sessions and things that we're doing with the Office for Student Success over there, and she'll talk about what they're doing at the University of Montana using EdReady. And then Jamie Middleton, math faculty at Bitterroot College, at Literacy Bitterroot, which is the adult basic education group in the Bitterroot Valley, and is also taught and substitute taught at the K-12 level. And she's one of our EdReady ambassadors who are out on the ground training, doing professional development, and helping professors, teachers, administrators use and scale the system. So they're going to talk about their experiences at their colleges and universities, and I'll be talking and narrowing it down to them and talk about a little bit about the background and where we got to where we are today. And then to finish it off, we'd also just like to, we have a contact card to follow up with if you want us to follow up with you, if either from a state level perspective, if you're here from another state, or a university or system approach, or if you're here from within our state, of course, we'd like to talk to you more if you're interested in knowing more about the program or following up with us for professional development. So that's where we're going today. Again, I'm from the Montana Digital Academy. We are the statewide virtual school for Montana. We're legislatively funded. We're in front of the legislature right now, fighting the legislative battles that are raging around education right now. And we recently had an amendment added to fund us at 2015 level, which is essentially a freeze, even though we've grown 12% over the last 2 years. It'll be a challenge at the end of this biennium. Some things will probably change, but it's better than where we were 2 weeks ago when we were in the House. We were funded at 2009 level, which was about a 50% cut. So we'll see where it ends up. Nothing's ever for certain until they sign House Bill 2 and the governor gets it on his desk, but we'll see how that all goes. But that's what we're in the midst of right now. And then the program that we're going to talk about is our EdReady Montana program. Again, we're separately funded. We were able to attain a gift from the Washington Foundation. Our first one was for 3 years. Our next one was for 5, and so we're funded through 2022 right now, and I'll talk to you about that at the end here. We're, again, the statewide virtual school. We're the only one nationally located on a university campus, and what that's done for us, as well as having our governing board be Office for Commissioner of Higher Education, Office of Public Instruction, which is our K-12 entity in our state, and then all the educational partners, we're uniquely positioned to solve or address some of these problems of, say, transition from high school to college, which is a huge issue in our national debate right now in education. And bringing the EdReady program to our state has been one of our accomplishments over the last 3.5 years that has gone beyond just serving, and I say that, just serving our K-12 organization or our high schools with online classes and options, which we do a great job of, but that's another day. We can talk about that in another session. And so we see us as a pretty natural bridge to that solution, and our association with both the Phyllis J. Washington College of Education, which is where we're housed. We do educational research, and we're starting to see some of the research findings come out We're in the midst of about 3 different research projects right now. Because now we've been doing it long enough to study, we have a lot of action research, we have a lot of personalized stories, we've got a lot of case studies and small use cases. Now we just need to do what we know works really well and keep doing it more and more because we feel like we're addressing some of the critical issues in education, especially related to math preparedness right now. When we started this project 3.5 years ago, we had to figure out how to make this make sense to people. And when you're bringing forth an educational solution that is delivering online classes, people have a pretty good idea of what that means when you say, I'm going to offer you an online class option. But when you bring forward a new tool that helps differentiate instruction, provide personalized learning path, and can be used in a lot of different ways, and we're handing it over to people, we have to be able to present that in a way that makes sense without intimidating people and making it seem really big and scary. And so what we start with and when we're talking with our users, we ask a simple question: what do you want your students to be ready for? And then we started with a handout that was something along the lines of this, where it showed the different units and topics that the system covers. And so when we start talking with math professors and department chairs and curriculum directors and administrators, we can start breaking it down into language that starts to make sense for them, which is essentially, we've evolved this message as well. It's essentially us creating for you a personalized math skills inventory of what you want students to know by a certain time or for a certain goal. And for instance, one for us would be 8th grade readiness. 8th grade readiness would be, what do you need that student to know on September 1st of their 8th grade year, or the first day they sit in class that year? We can start breaking down what our system can bring forward and create a personalized goal for those students to be 8th grade ready, or college algebra ready, or whatever it is that you say. I want my student to be ready for X, and this is what the math skills are that we can put in front of them and get them through. So that's what we started to talk about 3.5 years ago. And then we also had to differentiate it from our online course programs, which we offered a lot of. And so it's a free online customized math readiness and individualized learning path tool based upon schools' needs. That's what we're creating over and over again. We're in about 380 different schools now, statewide. And we have over 65,000 student enrollments over the last 3.5 years using our program, from upper elementary through adult ed. But it's offered, managed, and supported by us to scale statewide. So we have the system to help enroll students, to help manage passwords, to make sure that the systems talk to one another, they're secure with single sign-on and all the technical back-end work that we have to do. We're also working with the technical company that created it to make sure that it's a stable system. And as they do updates, we're feeding them ideas for the next round of updates. And I meet weekly with their technical lead, or with their lead programmer, or their lead director, who then has a direct line to the programming team and the implementation team and everybody that's working on it nationally. We are the role model for the rest of the nation in doing this program. And then it's facilitated locally by the school, college, or university personnel. This is the group that created it. It's the NROC project. It used to be called the Monterey Institute for Technology and Education. You may be familiar with them because they offer an OER system that it's called Hippocampus. Learning Object Repository is what they used to be called. And I think we were the first ones to adopt that when I worked at MSU Great Falls. I used to be the distance director there for 8 years, and we adopted it when we went to D2L, and we tapped into that so for our faculty members to be able to pull resources from that Learning Object Repository directly into their online classes. So that's how I knew them. But then the next project that they undertook was this developmental math curriculum. The calling from their members, it's a member-driven organization that creates open educational resources. We're a member, and we buy into this for the whole state. So everybody can use this free of charge in Montana, and you contact us and we'll help you get things set up. And we'll talk to you about how to utilize either the Learning Object Repository, which we'll talk about, but then to integrate it, you'd have to go directly to them to get it integrated with your LMS. But then for us, we're using both the developmental math curriculum in our online algebra courses, and then we definitely saw the potential to be a pilot test site for EdReady, which we started in 2013 and have grown since then to what we are now. So I'll play this quick video, and it shows how the system works. It's about a minute long. We'll see how this works in this room with no house audio. So you just have to listen to my... I'm actually going, whoops. This is the wrong one. I had it all queued up, but then I think when we... There we go. Luckily, I know right where to go here. It's expensive when you have to do developmental level math. That's the first minute.
To be your story. If you're planning to attend college in Montana, your first step is EdReadyMontana.org. It's free, and it's for students of all ages, from middle school to high school to college. With EdReady, you can clearly see your options and gain the math skills that make sense for you. Here's how it works. First, you or your school will select your goal. This tells EdReady where you want to go. Next, take a short self-assessment to find out what you may already know. Your results are presented as an EdReady score, showing what you should study and what you may have already mastered. Your EdReady score shows where you are right now in math. You can see how far this places you from the goal you chose, shown as a target score. With a clear idea of where you are and where you want to go, EdReady builds a study path to help you get there. Follow your study path to reveal helpful online resources for each topic. You choose which resources support how you learn best. When you think you've mastered a concept, check your knowledge and watch your EdReady score improve. If you put in the time and use the resources provided, you can be ready for any goal you choose. EdReady gives you what you need to know to get you where you want to go. So, what do you want to be ready for?
Okay, so I just wanted to, it does a better job in a minute to talk about how the system physically works. What we are promising, though, to anybody here, if you want to, we, at the end, will have the sign-up sheets, and if you want a sample account into our system, you can get a sample teacher and student account. You can go in and take an assessment. You can go in and look at the reports. If we get to that part in Q&A, we also have some screenshots, and we can talk to you a little bit more about the actual power behind the system. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why we're here and what we see as a huge potential growth area in higher education that I believe is untapped right now. And I'll talk to you about why I think it's a little bit untapped. But when we first started this about 3.5 years ago, we were looking at this slide. This was a study that was put out 2010 to 2012 American Community College Survey or Census Bureau. And it says that we in Montana have some college and no degree around 138,000 people in our state. And we know, and my job at the time was at a 2-year college, and so that's our target audience, right? Those are people that tried and for some reason or another stepped out of the education realm, and now they're making another run at it. But how do you serve those people when their skills are rusty, when they're coming at it from a whole different background than your traditional age students? The answer is you have to get a little creative sometimes, and we know with dropout rates and retention rates and things like that, the way they are in our national scene, that we should be looking at something different. So when I had the opportunity to get into the EdReady program and try it, I saw the potential. And so this was our start. We did our pilot in summer and fall of, or spring and summer of 2013, and we had great results. The students that did that, they essentially, they tested low on their placement test at the University of Montana. They took EdReady, spent an average of 10 to 15 hours in the system for free, retested, and 86% of them increased their score by at least 1 grade without having to pay for any credits. They saved about 150 credits over a 6-week program and about $30,000 in tuition and fees. So we knew we were onto something. Oh, and then they averaged a B- in their classes the next fall. And so they were as successful or more successful than their counterparts that had gone through the traditional developmental track. And so what we knew is we had something. We didn't know that the higher education community would be slower to adopt and pick this up when they heard about it than our K-12 organizations. So I'm going to show you, talk a little bit about our story. So we started off, and higher education was obviously climbing at a higher rate. It took us a while to get out into the schools. I'm only one person. This is a big state. And so talking about this with all the different constituents took us some time, and we did that over the course of this first year and built a website and built the integration system. And then over this first year, we did a lot of discussions so that by the time the next summer rolled around, K-12 was ready to ramp up. And this is where K-12 started to take off, was in the fall of that year, the fall of 2015. And then this is what it looks like now. This is our enrollments now of all different types. You can see our higher education has continued to climb. We have some great use cases. Highlands College, I know there's those of you here from Tech and Highlands. Western's been using us now in every one of their 90 and 95 classes. Their basic and intermediate algebra classes for some time with 2 different professors, and they've made multiple iterations of it. And then we're going to talk to you about the other use cases here at the University of Montana. We're also being used at MSU in Gallatin, and then at Bitter College and at the University of Montana. But this is where our growth has gone. And then these other ones this is our adult basic education. We're used in every adult basic education center in the state. There's 18 of them. Everybody that walks through the door and needs math help gets an EdReady account. And then the others, individuals. Anybody in our state can just sign up for an account and learn math to better themselves, whatever that is. And there's by some of the numbers, with high schools and middle schools being our largest adoptions right now, a growing elementary school. This was at the end of our 3rd fiscal year. We were right around 60,000 at the end of January of this year. And then you can see our 2- and 4-year colleges where they sit, and then adult basic education centers and our general walk-up users. This is part of our challenge, and this is what those of you in educational technology, this is part of your challenge every day as well, is trying to paint this picture. And I stole this, I lifted this, I gave him some credit, but this is Michael Horn, the guy that did Disrupting Class, Clayton Christian Institute, and they're talking about disruptive innovation in education. And then this is the book, Blended. In his book, Blended, when he was doing his presentation live, I lifted this because I love the picture. This is really what we deal with every day in our field. This is the technology piece that we're talking about when we're talking about EdReady, but there's so much more that goes into this. I can't do this just with the technology. All these other things have to come to me. I need to have a team around a rallying cry. What's the problem? Is it that we don't have enough fall-to-fall retention and there's not enough students passing math? Great. But until someone comes to me and says it's not working well enough the way we're doing it, they're not ready for me. They're not ready for us. And I think that's part of the challenge in higher education is getting a team together around this idea or around any idea so that you don't have a meeting about how to not do it. You start having a meeting about how to approach it. And that's then where we start having these good conversations about the teaching and student experience. How does it fit in with your other content? How does it fit in with your facilities, your teaching strategy, your timeline, all the other things that it takes, financial aid, the registrar, all the other things that you have to balance especially when you're approaching this from higher education. But this is what we do, and this is what Jamie and I do with colleges and universities, is try to help them through this system. And we've been doing it now. We're fairly successful. We've got 350 plus schools using us, and we're ready to help anybody else who's ready to do it. Nationally, we're part of the conversation. This is Complete College America. If you're not familiar with that, the corequisite work that's going on at our state is fairly important right now. It's kind of at the ground floor in Montana. But what's happened nationally is usually the gateway level math class within 2 years is kind of an indicator that they're using. And right now, our number in our state is 29% of our students that enter developmental level math finish their gateway level math class within 2 years. 29%. 71% do not. In my opinion, and as a former college educator, that's not good enough. I'd be looking for some solutions. That's why I'm excited to work where I'm at, and this is the results when they employ this corequisite model and they have the statewide organizations that do it. They've moved from 12 to 31%, our number's 29, up to above 60% within 1 year. 12 to 31 in 2 years to 60% in 1 year. I think we're a good piece of technology that can plug in around all this other stuff to do with corequisite. We're not taking the place of anything. We're going to plug in and help people do the corequisite model. And I'll talk to you about then how this is working. Again, these pillars and the things that you're going to hear from my colleagues here, it's changing the way we talk about placement. It's actually just doing away with the word placement because it's stupid. When you just say placement, it's not good enough. Because if you just take a test on one day and that's your number, you're labeled and you're placed and you're profiled. And you're usually profiled as a bonehead math student. Or that you don't know math very well, and that's what you've been told your whole life. Instead of, you're a college student, this is your inventory of skills of what you need to know in math, and if you go through this program, you will be in that class. Now, it may take you 2 hours and you 20 hours and me 35 hours, but we'll all be able to make it. We're all college material. That's got to be our message when students walk through our open enrollment college door. And so that's changing that vernacular. And that's kind of the pillars of this, and changing it from the purpose, which is getting you into college, from placement. And that's what you'll hear them say at Complete College America. And then increasing or decreasing the time to that first class, and et cetera, et cetera. And this is part of the reason. I'm going to move through these last ones fairly quick so I can have them introduce their programs. But these are our numbers, 8.6% in STEM and 9.7% within 6 years are the graduation rates of our students that enter developmental level math. So it just goes down. You go from 71% that don't make it the first year down to under 10% of them that actually make it all the way through within 6. And that's the numbers, percentage of first time entering remedial math at the 4-year and 2-year. Again, there's different requirements at those, and there's different expectations of our 2-year and 4-year. There's a lot of reasons we could go into. And there's our number, 29% within 2 years. And here's our fall-to-fall retention rates at our 2-year colleges in our state. And this is the last year. And basically, essentially what it says is the MUS 2-year campus average is 55% fall-to-fall retention rate when students are in remedial classes. So if there's not a compelling reason there, if everybody's happy with a coin flip, if you walk into a remedial class of whether you're going to be back in the fall, okay. But if you're not, I have something that we could at least try to approach the problem with, especially with math. And so this is what we're seeing at Highlands College. And when we started our program, Highlands College had, I believe it was 84% of their entering freshmen were going into remedial math, the largest number in the state at the time that we started. And so they knew that they had to address this problem. So they're doing a lot of things. It's not just EdReady. You walk in and you talk to Denise Alakovich, their math department chair. She says, I don't care what I need to do. I can't do any worse. I got to do something to turn this around. And she was at this conference 4 years ago when I first met her and we started using the program together. That's what she told me. Can't do anything worse. I've been trying program after program after program and nothing's meeting my needs. If yours doesn't work, I'm going to try it and give it my best shot, but if it doesn't work, I'm going to be down the road trying to find something else. And the fact that she's still using it, she was supposed to be here today so I could talk about her, but she wasn't able to make it. But the fact that she's still using it, I think, speaks for anybody that knows her. But what their numbers showed then is their retention rates over 3 years, their 3-year average was 60%, and their current level as of this one, just over a year ago, was up to 71% of the fall-to-fall retention rate. So to me, it's not just EdReady. There's a lot of things that are adding to that. But when you go back and look at their number, they got to be doing something different over the last 2 years in order to go from down in the pack to a little bit above. So there's that. And then this is really what we're going to be talking about, which is changing this model of developmental math up to 3 discrete courses, college algebra, calculus, to these different models that we're seeing emerge in our use cases. And so just really briefly, the content recovery model, or the one where we have, it's mastery based, there's usually a post test to promote them. That's the model that the University of Montana is using, where they're having them take EdReady free of charge and then test. And then at Western, they're using us as a supplement for their traditional length class, but their traditional length class is not traditional length. They follow the block schedule, and so it's already shorter by nature. But what it's doing is helping them differentiate within the class, and they've been using us now for a couple of years and have gone through several iterations of that. And then the reduced time model, which is, I believe, what we're going to talk about with Bitterroot College and with Highlands College, is they are allowing students to complete more than one semester more than one semester of study within one semester class. So a student will sign up for Math 090, they'll complete the EdReady goal and reach their goal score, they'll sit for her final, and then they'll move right into 95 under the same roof without paying for an additional class. Some students take all the semester, so it's still supplemental at that point, but they're allowing for acceleration within that. And last semester, she had 12 students that completed 090, 095, and 121, and are now in calculus in one semester. And she's doing it with the program to assist her to be able to teach that differentiated instruction. So I believe that's where the power doesn't happen with the technology alone. The power happens when they build a program that allows the students, and it's blended learning, they're controlling their pace, place, or time, or all of the above, of working through the system. So I think that's where we'll end that part and then there's one other research study that was done at the University of Montana, and this was over our first 2 years, and at the college level, this is the developmental math students and their GPA entering into all of these different courses. So and those of you that are familiar with the numbering system, and these are the titles, so there's probability and linear math, there's college algebra, and then there's contemporary math at the University of Montana, our side of the equation. I think that's math for liberal arts on the other side of the hill. And then, so what this is 2.83 is the GPA for the students that went through developmental level math, and this is the only case where it's slightly lower. The students that got there through EdReady got a 2.76 GPA. That's the only one that's lower, and it's a couple of hundredths of a point. But you can see here the 115 students with 281 students going through this to get through it to EdReady, they were a half point higher in their GPA than their counterparts that went through the developmental math track. And then at 121, it was higher as well. And again, those students are not paying for the program in many cases, or they're accelerating through more than one class in a semester. So they're also saving time and money, as well as doing just as well or better than their counterparts that are going through the other program. So that's the reason why I think we're here and we have a compelling story to tell. And then go ahead. Who goes first?
I'll go first. So my name's Lauren Fern. I'm a lecturer at the University of Montana. What I want to do is I want to talk about how we're currently using EdReady, and then we have a lot of future plans that I'd like to talk with you about as well. So at University of Montana, I don't know how many of you are from Montana or are familiar with our curriculum, but we don't teach developmental courses at UM. Those are taught at the Missoula College. So EdReady is primarily a developmental math program, but if any of you guys are math educators, you know that even the calculus students need brushing up with their algebra, even with their fractions. So this can be used across the board. Now, how we have been using it very successfully, and our primary use is for the math placement preparation. So either prior to taking the math placement exam, students can do the EdReady program and then take the math placement. Although more often than not, students are very excited to just take their math placement because they're convinced that they're going to place into exactly where they want to be, which unfortunately is not always the case. And when they find that they don't place into the course, their gateway course, if you will, then they contact me and I sign them up for EdReady. And what that does is it serves as a refresher, helps them fill in any gaps that they may need. Now, which EdReady module I put them in, we made a module for each different course that these students will be wanting to get into. So we have a college algebra readiness module that's specifically built with those skills. We have a probability and linear math module specifically built with those skills, et cetera. So the student then goes through and completes the EdReady module and then retakes the placement test. And we have about an 80% success rate with students then placing into the course, sometimes one level higher than where they initially placed, sometimes even 2 levels higher. So that's our primary use at UM currently. Last winter and over the summer, we've also used it as a recovery tool. We've contacted the students at Missoula College who were in developmental math, who didn't pass their class, but were on the cusp. So we didn't take the students who failed or withdrew, but we took the students who were on the cusp. We offered them use of the EdReady program, and those who took advantage of it, again, 80% then retook the placement. They didn't need to repeat the course that they did not already pass. So this is really helpful for especially our population of students here in Montana who don't necessarily have the funds nor the time to keep retaking. And as we know, when students have to retake courses over and over again, that does not help with retention whatsoever. So those are 2 of our main uses. However, what I'd like to talk about are some really cool directions that we've headed. So physics, chemistry, those students need a good solid math background. Now, where do a lot of them start sinking? They start sinking because while they're interested in these sciences, their math is not necessarily up to par with how they need to succeed. So it's sort of like, how do you do the chemistry and learn the chemistry and the ideas if you're still struggling over the mathematics? So I've gotten together with the advisors in both chemistry and physics, and they filled out, Ryan showed you all the different units, and we have handouts with that. I had them go through and say, which units do you want your students to be proficient at? And so now we have these modules that chemistry students can take, that physics students can take, that also will help build. Other places that we're going to be doing is we're going to start strategically targeting incoming students who don't place into college level math. So for all of our non-STEM students, which usually means they're going into math for liberal arts or probability and linear math, more the statistics end for the anthropology majors, et cetera. What we're going to do is if they don't have the ACT score coming into UM to place directly into the class, we are going to email them that there's this expectation that they need to complete the EdReady module prior to even taking the placement test to begin with. So that's something that I'm working on with the Office of Student Success to get in play. Lastly, Ryan had mentioned the corequisite remediation program, and I don't know if any of you at your schools are using the CoREC model, but that's something that the University of Montana is really looking into, and I'm hopefully going to be developing a pilot course for that for the probability and linear math this upcoming semester. So those students who place a level lower, if you will then be able to take the math, probability and linear math course, but simultaneously will be filling in the gaps. EdReady is going to be a primary component of that because that's going to enable these students to do a fair amount of the work on their own, at their own pace, so then we can keep bringing them along in the direction that they need to head. So our big exciting one is the CoREC model. I think that that's a perfect fit for us at University of Montana for the EdReady. That and then the placement exams. And again, we just started the chemistry and physics module, but both of those departments are super excited about having that available for the students to be able to just supplement their math skills so that they can succeed in their other courses. That's it in a nutshell. I could talk forever, of course.
Right, we're teachers. I never teach sitting down, so I'm not sure how this will work for me. Rather animated sometimes.
But I'm Jamie Milton. I teach math at the Bitterroot College, which is a very small community college down in Hamilton, and at the Missoula College as well. So, and I got involved with EdReady as an adult basic educator, and because that is still to this day is my favorite job, is to teach people math that never believed that they could do it. And I find it just rewarding on a daily basis. And I feel like I finally have a program that feels the same way about students and treats them in that way as adult learners that are on a learning path. And it enables me to talk about growth mindset and that math isn't a gene that we all have. It's a progression of steps, and you could be sitting next to somebody that is up a few steps, but you're on this step, and that's just fine. And then this amazing thing happens in my math boot camps and even in my classroom, because they all start to see this hope and this joy of mastery, and it's so exciting that they're in the driver's seat. And they feel really respected. And it's hard to say, I mean, maybe this sounds crazy that you're like, it's a computer program. How can that show respect? But it does. It's very, very targeted to adult learners. So even if they're at really low level math skills, the first thing, and many of my college algebra students have to go back to whole numbers and learn about place value. For whatever reason, those are major holes for them, and fractions. And it teaches them in a way that they just think, oh, well, that's just a hole that I was missing, and now I have to fill it in, and it's okay. That question that, and I was a gifted and talented teacher, and also a gifted student, that people would assume that I knew a lot of things, and I was not very comfortable about telling them that I didn't know those things. So I remember clearly getting into calculus, and deep down kind of had this issue with common denominators. But I couldn't tell anybody that. I couldn't say that. It would be horrible. And I've had gifted students use this program and tell me that exact same thing, that I was pushed along really quickly because I was bright and I did well and I picked things up quickly, but I missed some things and I never knew when to go back to fill in those things. So I feel like this just, it's a private experience, and it's their experience, and they're in the driver's seat, and that is incredibly powerful. No matter if we're talking about, the student that's, I'm thinking of the high-set student that's on probation with his bracelet because he, has gotten in a lot of trouble, and he has to be there because he's been mandated to. But watching that kid transform as to starting this program and starting with his hands like this, not wanting to be there at all, and slowly getting into this, understanding how we're seeing him, that I just see him as another learner. Just maybe you have holes, I don't know what they are, but this will tell you what they are, and then I'm here to help you. I'm a resource for you. I'm not telling you what you know or don't know. I can't wait until you're on this journey and I get to teach you something. And so I waited and waited, and he kept clicking and clicking, and then finally one day he said, "Mr. Milton, can you tell me about this circle thing?" And I was like, "The circle thing!" Yeah, and I just backflipped down, and I got my radius square out, and I was showing him, and it was just this great moment that I get to be that guide on the side, whereas, traditionally I always was up in front of the board and the sage on the stage, I guess, and I'm comfortable doing that, but I don't always feel like students are. So that's where I feel good, but they feel a lot better when they're asking me that question that they really need, and they get to that point of frustration that so much educational research says that they learn the most when they get to that little point of frustration where they just want to know that piece, and then I can be there for them. So, sorry, I just love it, and I have so many stories, so I have to really stay on track here. And I think of him that he was sitting right next to a sheriff's department deputy, that's interesting, that he was just there to learn trigonometry. So it's odd they were sitting next to each other. And pretty soon he starts asking him questions. And the sheriff starts helping him because, oh yeah, I know how to do that. I know about that too, so let me show you. And this cool thing happens in the room with people with completely diverse knowledge can be working together because they've realized, oh, math is we're just gaining skills. And besides, that you can really differentiate a classroom. I taught public school for a long time, and I was that teacher teaching 3 different courses at the same time to 3 different groups of kids, and I'm running around like crazy, and I didn't mind doing that because that's what they needed. And I thought that would change when I went to higher ed. Not at all. I still have, 4 different groups of people at 4 different levels. Even if they're learning the same curriculum, they are at different levels. And now I can offer them something to fill in those holes. So I just absolutely love it. I love to share it. I'd love to come to your school and show you how it works and help you do all of that. That's what I'm here for. So if you leave here today and you say, where do I start? Please call me. I will walk you right through it. There's so many different use cases. That's the exciting and often daunting part, I think, of EdReady, is that there's so many ways you can use it. So sometimes people walk away like, I don't even know where to start. But I'll tell you where to start is you have one student that says, I'm really interested in this, and okay, let's get you going, and let's walk through this together. And it can be as simple as that, or as big as, let's get 1,000 of your students enrolled and going on a bigger program. So the boot camp that I run, that's kind of what I really wanted to talk about in terms of use case. Advisors sign students up for either a summer or winter boot camp prior to them starting the course, and they run 6 weeks. And I make it very open. I'm here, these are the hours that I'm here. You can be here the whole time. You can be here for 10 minutes and get the program and do it at home because it's cloud-based. And we live in a very rural community. So oftentimes students are driving 80 miles just to get to our center, which, and now luckily with technology, even if they're there, they still can do this at home, which is great. So sometimes I will check on students and I go, oh my gosh, I'll be amazed that they've done so much at home, or they stay with me for the whole time. And we've found the same amount of success. I feel like the biggest success for me has been in college algebra, that 121 class, because that's often a group that has very diverse skills. Yeah. And when they go through this, and I feel crazy when I say it's 100%, but I can honestly say that 100% of the students that went through the entire college algebra module and succeeded in that got an A in my 121 class. So it's a small sample size, but to me that really means a lot. That I've never had anybody walk in my door and say, I need help, that got the help they needed. They were very successful. So that's exciting.
Do we have any questions? I can fire some to them, or if you have some, we'd be happy to field them.
I graduated in mathematics and I've taught math. I don't currently teach math. I work at Iowa State University, so I would say sister university with University of Montana State. And very similar issues with students in math preparedness and math ability, and how it hurts them in various classes. If not using your resources, but imagining we cloned your servers and everything. But how much of this is would only work in the UM system, or how much of it is general? That if you two came to ISU and spoke to our faculty to promote this idea, ISU could say, oh, this is something that we can use.
Want me to answer that, or do you want to?
I can talk about cost first, or after you. Go ahead.
It's entirely transferable.
Okay, that's right.
It's so one of the handouts that we have here actually has a list of all the different modules, and you can then look through the modules and what's taught in, for example, a college algebra class. I know, that thing is so poorly placed. What's taught in a college algebra class at your school might be slightly different than mine, but the basic ideas are the same. So, no, this is, I taught in Illinois for 12 years before coming to Montana, and I could have used it in all my classes there as well.
And, one thing is, thinking of the math department at ISU, and I think it's true every place, if you were trying to convince people, faculty, that this was a good idea, you would want other faculty to speak to them, because numerous times you're sold a bill of goods, too, so there have been a lot of broken promises on this side, on the other thing, so even for a phone call or a tech meeting or something, would you guys be available if
I mean, speaking for myself, I would 100% be available. I mean, we've tried using EdReady in some other ways at UM that didn't work. So a lot of it is experimentation with your particular group of students at that particular level, the demographics, et cetera. What works, you know, I could talk about what's worked, what hasn't worked, and a lot of it is just, you know, I mean, clearly Jamie has a very different group of students
Right.
than I do. So what's going to work with her students is different than mine and vice versa. But absolutely, you know, with my department, I mean, to get any math department to buy into anything is a difficult thing because mathematicians tend to be very stubborn creatures.
Well, I mean, it's true of everything. Plus, I
Yes.
mean, in education, I mean, so often we hear, oh, this next great thing, and it's not thought out, and people are forced to make changes. So you get burnt enough times.
Yes.
Educating about everything.
You know, to use it mindfully and intentionally and to see where it works with your particular group of students, you know, you have to do some test cases and sometimes you're going to fall flat on your face, but then you find what works. So for example, this chemistry and physics module was this brand new idea we had this
I
year.
really like it, by the
And yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I think it's very exciting. So, again, finding where it works, I would be happy to have a phone call with you, as I'm sure.
Yeah, and I've probably been on average of one, if not two a month for the last 2 years and doing similar discussions. The cost is becoming an NROC member, and it would depend upon, you know, you'd have to contact them about that piece. We have that covered for our whole state, so we don't worry about that cost. We absorb that into what we've been gifted, but then, you know, to get started up, we started up at no cost. I mean, we did the pilot because we wanted to try the pilot, and I don't know what it would cost to do a pilot with them and try out just a small use case. But these are results from Jacksonville State, and they've adapted their whole system to replace their placement test. And so they're using EdReady as kind of they're calling it a low stakes placement, where they essentially take an EdReady learning path and work it through to 80 or 100%. And the students that are doing that, they've gone from, in their STEM program, passing an A to C, and this was when they were still at about 50% absorption rate, so they had about 50% doing a traditional placement test. They were at 63% pass rate, and they were at 76% pass rate in their STEM classes. And then they've done some update to this, and now they have almost 100% of their students going through
You
it.
said which school was it?
This is Jacksonville State in Alabama.
So EdReady is not just Montana.
Correct.
EdReady is bigger, and NROC is bigger than
Yeah,
just Montana.
yeah. And we've also been in talks with IDLA.
Yeah.
And so we've talked to them quite a bit about how they're going to adopt it and adapt it for Idaho students as well.
But that actually might be in two that multiple people.
I don't know what,
Other Idahoans are being discussed.
and I don't know what they would be doing for piloting with partners in the state or whatever, so,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. I know they're, anyway, I can hook you up with people there if you're interested. Yes?
What does NROC stand for?
Well, it used to be National Repository of Online Courses, but they just call themselves the NROC Project now. So it doesn't really, they don't really have an acronym, but
Does EdReady's results integrate with the LMS?
the results, so what,
Like when a student takes an assessment, that's one of my biggest beefs is that my instructor is having their students literally take a picture of their results, circle the result, and send it to the instructor. And I'm like, no. There's got to be a better way.
we can have a discussion about some options that we need to look into, because I've never been approached about that at this point. Yep. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, let's talk afterwards. Any,
I don't know, I want to make sure I understood your question, but the reports are available to all the teachers, so they can look up their students.
you're talking about feeding it
But-
through to the,
but
doing
like a
some
banner
integration
system
work,
or something.
yeah.
Well, no, just an integration to plug in
Yeah.
the LMS.
Let's talk.
Instead of having
Yeah.
separate
Right.
recordings.
Gotcha.
Because that's highly frustrating.
That's what, I've been working on that with our LMS, but so far I haven't been approached to do that with, yeah. Okay, let's talk. Are there any other,
University of Montana, Western.
Okay.
what I'd like to do is pass out our contact sheets, and if you would like us to follow up with you, make sure one of us gets this, and then we promise we'll follow up in a timely manner and get back to you whether you're looking to integrate or discuss.